talk about the importance of communities when it comes to genealogy, like the schools, the
Mm-hmm.
churches, the
Mm-hmm.
neighborhood,
So
like
in
that foundation.
2025, we don't live the way folks used to live. I don't know how often people go visit their parents anymore. Like I live in the same town as my mom, but that's because I moved and then she moved here, right? It's not like I'm still in the town I grew up in. And my grandparents were in a whole other state. And so everybody's really separated. But two things used to be the case. People used to be in more close-knit circumstances with their personal relatives, but whether they were or were not, they created a community, which we still do today, right? Still not as much as we used to because, the world is all weird now and we just talk to people on the internet instead of in person. But
Mhm.
school records, knowing who did you go to school with, what kind of clubs were you in, knowing, who was your social circle. Sometimes people ended up marrying somebody from their own social circle. Even just knowing who your neighbors were. I know we don't do the neighborhood kids play outside thing the way we used to, but that was your community. It could be, you're running home and the woman down the street pops her head out and reminds you better hurry up because it's almost time for the street lights, right? So like the community was smaller, and understanding the community that your family grew up in really impacts how they grew up, and some of those same traditions were passed forward to you, right? Were they really involved in the church? Were they really involved in
Mhm.
civic organizations? Were they big on giving back and doing like food donation drives for the community and things like that? The church was a very different thing than it is now. The church wasn't just a place of worship, it was really a major social structure as well. And for some people, it still is. But think about it. There were the auxiliaries. There could have been like single nights that they would have at church. There could be the thing where, somebody's mama and somebody else's auntie were like, you know what? I think these two need to date and we're going to put them together. Right. So it was just a much more closed community. And that's how people formed relationships and they formed partnerships. And that's where people's best friends were oftentimes. And I think, too, especially in our community, when somebody says, oh, that's my auntie, well, we have to remember that didn't always mean there was a blood tie to that person. So when you're doing things like your genealogy, even if you've heard your whole life that Miss Sarah is, my auntie, well, she might actually not be. Or, my mom always said this lady was her aunt. Well, really, that was just her grandma's best friend. So just understanding that those titles and the way
Mhm.
we use the word cousins. Cousins also just means my best friend's kids to my kids, right? It doesn't necessarily mean there's a blood connection.